Imagine a chilly December evening in 1953. You're seated comfortably on a train, excited to meet your family in another city. It's finally Christmas Eve, and by this time tomorrow you will be in front of a warm fireplace, opening presents under the tree, and having a feast prepared by your loved ones. Only that day never comes. Instead, you are trapped in your train's carriage. Half of the train has fallen off the bridge. The bridge you were supposed to cross is gone, and it's only a matter of time before your carriage falls into the river. Unfortunately, you might not make it for Christmas. These would be the thoughts of 285 passengers on board a passenger train in New Zealand. As the rest of the world excitedly prepared for its festivities, a nightmare was unfolding in New Zealand, a disaster so immense it would rewrite the nation's history. This is the chilling tale of the Tangiwai train disaster, an event driven by a lethal combination of fate, nature's wrath, and a series of tragic blunders. Buckle up as we dive into one of New Zealand's darkest, most haunting nights. To understand the full gravity of the Tangiwai train disaster, we need to rewind to post-World War II New Zealand, a country brimming with progress and modernization. The nation's railways, critical for linking its two largest cities, Wellington and Auckland, were a symbol of this advancement. Nestled in the Ruapehu district, Tangiwai, meaning weeping waters in Maori, was a tranquil village with breathtaking natural beauty. The Tangiwai Bridge, a vital structure spanning the Wangehu River, would become the stage for a disaster of unimaginable scale on the night of December 24th. Mount Ruapehu, a majestic yet dangerously active stratovolcano, had erupted earlier that month on December 5th. This eruption triggered a lahar. Lahars are not your ordinary mudflows. They are ferocious, fast-moving rivers of volcanic sludge that can destroy everything in their path, which meant that the Tangiwai Bridge, which had already been compromised by the eruption, faced a grave threat. On Christmas Eve, a passenger train departed Wellington, packed with passengers eager to celebrate the holiday with loved ones. The journey was smooth until the train approached Tangiwai, where tragedy awaited. As the train neared the Tangiwai Bridge, disaster was looming. The lahar had weakened the bridge's foundations, but neither the train crew nor railway authorities knew of the imminent danger. At exactly 10:21 p.m., the bridge gave way under the train's weight. The compromised structure could no longer support the train, and carriages plunged into the icy, dark river below, casting passengers into chaos and terror. The Tangiwai Rail Bridge, a sturdy structure built in 1906, was about to face its ultimate test. Spanning 198 feet across the Wangehu River, the bridge was a lifeline for the community, connecting towns and facilitating transport. But as the lahar surged toward it, the bridge's resilience would be tested to the limits. The force of the floodwaters collided with the bridge's piers with a brutal impact. The lahar roared through the river, dislodging piers and displacing spans. Pier number 2 had its top section sheared off, found wedged between piers 1 and 2. Pier number 3 was shattered into fragments, some of which were discovered near the locomotive, while others were lost to the river's depths. Pier number 4 was entirely uprooted. Its base, a massive 126-ton block, was found 70 yards downstream. Pier number 5 was similarly torn from its moorings, broken into pieces, with only the top section located downstream. Miraculously, piers 1, 6, 7, and 8 remained intact, but the damage was overwhelming. The spans of the bridge fared no better. Span number 1 was flung upstream, span number 2 was found beside the engine, and span number 3 was discovered lying on the riverbank, 80 yards downstream. Spans number 4 and 5 were either displaced or missing entirely. Only spans 6 and 7 managed to stay in place amidst the chaos. Cyril Ellis from Taihape had stopped his car at the submerged road bridge. Spotting the approaching train, he raced toward it, desperately waving a torch to warn the driver. Investigations later revealed that the brakes had been applied too late to prevent disaster in the first 5 carriages. Ellis and William Inglis, the train's guard, alerted passengers in Car Z and moved them to the adjacent carriage, but Car Z broke free and fell into the river. Ellis, Inglis, and passenger John Holman rescued 21 of the 22 passengers from Car Z through shattered windows, forming a human chain to reach the riverbank. Arthur Bell and his wife were also witnesses to the calamity. As his wife went to raise the alarm, Arthur helped rescue survivors from another carriage that had landed on the riverbank. Some survivors were swept downstream before finally reaching safety. Nearby residents heard a disturbing roaring noise. Leo Smith, a young police constable from Waiyuru, was among the first to investigate. He led the initial rescue efforts until more experienced teams arrived from Taihape. At this point in time, New Zealand had no national rescue organization. Volunteers from the New Zealand Forest Service, Ministry of Works, police, navy, farmers, and locals worked through the night. The Waiyuru military camp offered critical support, providing manpower, transport, and shelter for survivors and rescuers. The rescue operation soon turned into a desperate body recovery mission. Over the following days, bodies were discovered up to 130 kilometers downstream. Prime Minister Sidney Holland's urgent plea for vigilance led to many bodies being recovered by locals in the Mangamahu section of the river. Some bodies may have been washed out to sea. George Twentyman, a young constable tasked with extensive clerical work, would later apply his skills to the Wahine tragedy in 1968. Identifying the victims was a daunting task. With summer heat and no refrigeration, the process was rushed and often inaccurate. Many victims were recent immigrants without local records. Police set up a makeshift mortuary at the army camp, and coroner's courts were quickly convened. Pathologist Dr. J. O. Mercer identified drowning and asphyxiation by silt as the primary causes of death. To speed up identification, Police Inspector Willis Brown organized a mass identification, preparing relatives for the emotionally devastating task. Unclaimed bodies were later transferred to mortuaries in Wellington and Wanganui. The aftermath was a scene of unmitigated horror. Wrecked carriages and a cold, fast-moving river served as stark reminders of nature's destructive power. The disaster claimed 151 lives, shattering families and leaving many to grapple with profound grief. The bravery of rescuers and the heartbreak of survivors became enduring symbols of the tragedy. Christmas Day services allowed New Zealanders to mourn collectively, with condolences pouring in from around the world. Queen Elizabeth's Christmas broadcast from Auckland included a heartfelt message for New Zealanders. More than 100 private funerals were held, and on December 31st, Prince Philip attended the state funeral for 21 unidentified victims buried in a mass grave at Wellington's Karori Cemetery. In April 1954, it was discovered that several bodies had been misidentified, leading to the exhumation of graves. 16 bodies, including 8 still unidentified, lie at the Tangiwai National Memorial at Karori, dedicated in 1957. Another death occurred during the bridge's reconstruction, which was completed and reopened in 1957. For their selflessness and bravery, Cyril Ellis and John Holman received the George Medal, while William Inglis and Arthur Bell, who saved 16 lives together, were awarded the British Empire Medal. Investigations revealed that the Tangiwai rail bridge had a history of damage. Over the decades, various incidents of scouring and erosion have affected its structure. In January 1925, a heavy swell had damaged Pier Number 4, and subsequent repairs were made. Further scouring was reported in 1936, 1944, and 1946, with numerous repair efforts undertaken to maintain the bridge's integrity. Despite these interventions, no one could have anticipated the sheer force of the lahar that struck in 1953. In response to the disaster, New Zealand embarked on a journey to enhance its disaster management practices. The Tangiwai tragedy underscored the need for more effective early warning systems and infrastructure resilience. By 2002, the Eastern Ruapehu Lahar Alarm and Warning System was established to monitor and provide alerts for lahar events. This system proved its value in March 2007, when it detected a moderate lahar and helped prevent further loss of life and damage. The memory of those lost in the Tangiwai disaster is preserved through a series of poignant commemorative events. Each Christmas Eve, The Wellington to Auckland Express slows as it crosses the new bridge, and the driver tosses flowers into the Wangihu River. This tradition, begun a year after the disaster, serves as a solemn tribute to those who perished. On March 26, 1957, a national memorial was unveiled at Karori Cemetery, honoring the 151 victims. Designed by government architect Francis Gordon Wilson, the memorial stands as a powerful reminder of the lives lost and the tragedy endured. Over the years, additional tributes have been established. A white wooden cross was erected in 1963, replaced by a granite obelisk in 1989. In 1994, the disaster site was designated a historic reserve, ensuring its preservation. A memorial for 2 railwaymen was unveiled in 2017 at the Tangiwai Historic Reserve, honoring their bravery and sacrifice. The Tangiwai disaster is more than a historical event. It is a profound lesson of nature's unexpected power and the importance of vigilance and preparedness. The legacy of the Tangiwai train disaster lives on in the new and improved safety measures, the memorials that honor the victims, and New Zealand's ongoing commitment to disaster management. It is a stark reminder that even on the most festive of occasions, and no matter how much we plan ahead for things, life finds a way to throw things in a completely different direction. May all of the victims and the families affected by this horrible tragedy find peace.